The Word of God is fundamental to Christians. It is our foundation, it is our assurance. But the fact is that many Christians often have no idea on what to do with the Word of God. So in this series, let us discover together what kind of role should the Word of God play in a believer's life. Now let us turn to Psalm 119, verse 105. It says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." It is talking about the Word of God here. Can you imagine that? Today we have lights everywhere, even at night. Some cities are even called the city that never sleeps. Things just keep going on and lights are everywhere, even at night. Therefore, modern people, especially those living in the city or even rural areas that have basic infrastructures, we just couldn't appreciate words like a lamp to my feet and a light to my path, as well as the generations before us. Perhaps it is more understandable if I say this way, and if I say driving at night. For drivers, you know this, especially when we go on a long journey or when we go to an unfamiliar location. Sometimes we come across roads without light. What could happen is that we might take a wrong turn or we drive into potholes. Or even worse, we go off the road. Sometimes we hear news about cars falling off a cliff or a bridge, and we often see cars hitting trees or poles off the road. So it is also common to hear cars hitting animals and humans. If driving on a road without light can cause so many of these things to happen, try to imagine if the car itself had no light, headlamps. We just can't use such car at night. It is illegal and it is dangerous. So when the psalmist says, "A lamp to my feet," it is like the headlamps of our cars. And a light to my path is like the lights on our roads. If the car has no headlamps and there's no light on the road, accidents are bound to happen. So what can we see if that the Word of God what can we see is that the Word of God shows us our surroundings, our circumstances. It gives us sight. When we turn on our headlamps, we see the surroundings clearly. We see the potholes, we see the road. When we have light on the road, it gives us direction so that we will not go off the road. Therefore, if we have the so-called accidents happening in our lives, perhaps we need to ask this first. Do we have light in our lives? If the answer is no, we should learn from the psalmist to let the Word of God to become a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. This is what believers should do. So if you feel lost in life, your future seems bleak to you, what you need is the Word of God. It is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. Now we still have another challenge. When Psalm 119 talks about path or way, the psalmist is talking about right and wrong. Right decision, wrong decision, right doing, wrong doing. And he's talking about the way we should go. He's talking about God's way. And there are people who does not like the light. They like darkness instead. Because when there is light, it shows us things we don't like, facts we don't want to face. So we turn off the light. It's like there won't be any COVID-19 cases if we don't test anyone. This is self-deception. Yet this is how many people live their lives. And sometimes we see the path, there's light on the path, we see it, but we don't like it. We decide to go off the road. And when we decide to do so, it doesn't really matter how familiar we are with the Word of God. We will still fall into pits and go off the road. We will still hit poles. We may arrive our destination, the destination we want, but we definitely will not arrive the destination God has prepared for us. Therefore, even though the Word of God can show us our circumstances and make clear God's path to us, we still need to learn to obey. Because even when our cars have headlamps, when there is light on the road, they are still useless if we insist on driving into potholes, into the sea, or go off the cliff. So let us learn to meditate the Word of God. Learn to receive and trust the Word of God. And we can start by trying and see, test the Word and see And you will find the true path when you do so. And this is a lifelong lesson for all of us. So it would be good for us to constantly ask ourselves, do I have the Word of God as a lamp to my feet and a light to my path? And am I walking in the light and staying on the path? So may God help us all.